How important do you think it is for not only the Catholic Church in France, but more globally as well?
Well, it is a very important trial. It has been postponed several times. The alleged victims have tried to bring Cardinal Barbarin to court several times, and there were always obstacles and technicalities which prevented it. So this is a major trial for the Roman Catholic Church indeed. Cardinal Barbarin is one of the most prominent figures in the French Roman Catholic Church, if not the most prominent. He was once tipped off as a potential future pope. So the stakes are really very high. And also, the whole case has brought a lot of attention from public opinion and from the media. It started about 3 years ago when a group of alleged victims organized themselves in an association. Some of them had already reported cases of abuse to the Lyon diocese and to Cardinal Barbarin. Nothing was done, so they organized themselves and went public and spoke out. And that's when, it drew a lot of attention from the media, from the public, and also a lot of sympathy. It's really a case of David against Goliath. Well,
with all of that in mind, what do you think we can expect from the trial? Is there an example trying to be set here?
Well, there is indeed. And there were cases in Europe, in different European countries, in Ireland, in Germany, in Belgium, basically in quite a few countries where bishops had to resign because of allegations of, covering up sexual abuse cases. But this one would be really a major trial. It also involves the Vatican, which has been had been informed in the past. There will be 5 other clerics, former members of the Lyon diocese, who will be attending the trial, and one of them will be absent, a 6th one will be absent, and he is the head of the very powerful Congregation for the Doctrine of Faith in the Vatican. He's number 3 at the Vatican, and he's not coming on grounds of immunity for the Vatican members. So it is likely to be quite a sensational trial. At worst, Barbarin faces 3 years of prison and 45,000 euros in fines. Nobody knows whether this will happen, but certainly it will affect the image of the French Roman Catholic Church.
Absolutely high stakes, definitely. Thank you very much, Valérie Goria, in the studio with us there. An intervention from the Pope, who's urged European leaders to end a diplomatic standoff over the fate of 49 migrants stranded in the Mediterranean for weeks. Speaking from the Vatican during his Epiphany address, Pope Francis said the migrants needed a safe port. Both Italy and Malta have already refused to allow the rescue ships to dock.
Dear brothers and sisters, 49 people rescued in the Mediterranean Sea have been on board 2 NGO ships for many days, looking for a safe port in which to land. I make a heartfelt appeal to European leaders that they may show concrete solidarity towards these people.
Well, that was Pope Francis speaking there, and we're joined now in the studio by Alistair Sanford to talk a little bit more about this. Morning to you, Alistair.
Morning, Belle.
So just tell us how important this intervention is by Pope Francis.
Yes, well, it does seem here that the Pope is going further than before. He's not just talking about showing compassion for migrants and refugees, but issuing a direct challenge to European leaders, saying these migrants are just looking for a safe port to disembark. Now, the row concerns these 2 rescue boats, both run by German NGOs. 49 migrants altogether. They've been stuck in the Mediterranean, close to Malta, suffering from being buffeted by winter storms. One of them was picked up on the 29th of December, the 17 migrants on board there. And the other one has been at sea now for over 2 weeks. It's run by a ship called Sea-Watch 3, and there's 32 people on board, including a number of children and teenagers. And last week, Sea-Watch issued a desperate plea over the plight of these migrants, many of whom are suffering from seasickness and stress. Now, Italy and Malta have been involved in a row with each other, both refusing to allow these ships to dock. Malta has allowed supplies on board, but is going no further than that. And on top of that, Italy's government is involved in an internal row over whether it should allow women and children off these ships and onto shore. Now, the Pope is going over the heads of both those governments and issuing what he calls a direct, heartfelt appeal to European leaders to show concrete solidarity and allow these migrants and refugees to land.
Well, as you've described there, Italy and Malta very much in the spotlight here, but what about other EU countries?
Well, once again, over the weekend, we've seen Spain, if you like, setting the example, stepping in and allowing hundreds of migrants to come ashore. Its maritime rescue service, it said over the weekend that it rescued 549 people who were trying to cross the Mediterranean in more than around a dozen small boats on Saturday and Sunday. This on top of another rescue in late December when the Open Arms rescue boat took in 310 migrants, and they came ashore in Spain as well. Now, the numbers reaching Spain doubled last year to some 57,000. That said, the overall number reaching Europe by non-legal means, if you like, was down by a quarter last year. Just to put that in perspective, that's according to the EU Border Agency. But what we're seeing is really individual countries involved in a kind of bartering process. The onus mainly on, of course, the Mediterranean nations. Spain and Malta have taken in migrants, but often only after protracted negotiations with other countries. Concerning the two German NGO ships, the Netherlands has said it will take in some of those migrants, but only if other countries do the same. So the Pope's criticism here chimes with what other NGOs and aid groups have been saying for months now, is that individual countries must show more responsibility. These people have rights according to international law on refugees, and they are not criminals. They're in Libya because they are fleeing persecution and conflict.
All right, well, thank you very much, Alistair Sanford there. Now, as we know, the main bone of contention in these negotiations and for British members of Parliament has been the Irish backstop. Do you think the Irish government's willing to shift on this at all?
No, in a word, no, Belle. For two reasons. First of all, from an EU perspective, the withdrawal agreement itself is sealed and it won't be reopened. It won't be renegotiated, not just from an Irish perspective, but from an EU perspective in all member states. That much is clear from the last council meeting in December. In relation to the backstop, you're right, it is the most, it's the gravest, I suppose, stumbling block of passing this withdrawal treaty. But the Irish government and Brussels both say that this is necessary as an insurance policy to protect peace on the island of Ireland, and the Good Friday Agreement, which provides that no border should be down the island separating Northern Ireland and the Irish state. So what the governments on both sides, the British, the Irish and the EU, would try to do would provide maybe Theresa May with further assurances that will prove that the backstop will be temporary if it's ever implemented, and it will be superseded by something else. But certainly the Irish government is not willing to move or change the backstop in any substantial way that would make it less legally viable.
The Irish have a lot to lose from a no-deal scenario. Does that mean, do you think, that they'll be trying to persuade the EU to give some assurance on this backstop?
Indeed, I think that Brussels and Dublin would like to do what they can to help Theresa May to pass this deal over the line. As it stands, the numbers aren't there for her. So there are a few concerns. First of all, that if she's given assurances over the next couple of weeks that they may not be enough to pass this treaty in the House of Commons anyway, and that she would return looking for more and more. So that's one concern. The second concern is the fact that whatever they give, and whether it's, as you mentioned there at the top, maybe assurances on nailing down elements of the future relationship, or assurances that the backstop itself will only be temporary, that they just may not be enough, because there's such a hard line anti-backstop, anti-withdrawal treaty, context in the UK at the moment. So that just simply wouldn't be enough. As you mentioned there, Ireland is bracing itself at the same time, because from an economic perspective, a no-deal Brexit would be very harmful to the Irish economy, but most importantly would be very destructive for the Good Friday Agreement. So it's a very difficult and tense time. We heard from the Irish Prime Minister last night, however, and he was very complimentary towards Theresa May and that interview with Andrew Marr, where she said that the backstop was necessary and that to ensure there wouldn't be a hard border on the island of Ireland. But as I mentioned there, government sources saying they can only do so much to help Theresa May now.